Jarek wiped the sweat from his brow and looked across his small farm. The soil was dry, the sun was setting, and for the 100th time that week, he felt the weight of loneliness. His farm was modest, barely enough to feed himself, let alone sell enough produce to make a living. Still, Jarek loved it. The work was honest and the quiet was comforting, even if it was often too quiet. He leaned on his hoe and watched the horizon. The sky was a deep orange, fading into purple, and the twin moons of his planet slowly rose. There was nothing remarkable about this world. No bustling cities, no spaceports, no alien visitors, just endless fields of crops, a few animals, and him, for most of his life, this simplicity had been peaceful. But lately he felt a strange emptiness, as if life were passing him by while others were having adventures he would never know, just as he was about to head back to his small cabin. A soft hum filled the air. He turned and saw a small, glowing device hovering a few feet from the ground. It looked like a cube made of light, projecting a holographic image above it. Yorek's eyes widened. These were not common on his farm, and he had never seen anything like it before. The hologram flickered and solidified into a figure wearing a sleek uniform. Its voice was calm, clear, and strangely magnetic. "Greetings, Jarek of Calith Prime," it said. "You have been invited to the Galactic Poker Tournament, a competition of skill, courage, and luck. Winners gain riches beyond imagination, opportunities rare in any galaxy. Your passage has been secured. Prepare to depart within 3 standard cycles." Garrick blinked. He rubbed his eyes. Galactic poker. Riches? Opportunities? Did I hear that right? "Yes," the hologram said. "Your participation has been chosen." Then, as suddenly as it appeared, the cube floated off and vanished in a shimmer of light. Jarek stood frozen for a moment. He had heard stories of interstellar games and gambling tournaments, but those were tales told in spaceports by travelers and traders. No one from Calith Prime, his quiet little planet, had ever been invited to one. He looked around his farm. The cows grazed lazily, the wind rustled through the tall crops. Everything was as normal as ever. Still, something inside him stirred. This could be his chance. It's a chance to leave the farm, to see the stars, to do something extraordinary the next morning. He packed a small bag with essentials, simple clothes, his favorite hat, a few personal keepsakes, and some food for the journey. He left a note on the cabin door explaining that he had to leave for an opportunity he could not refuse. His neighbors would not understand, he knew. Most would call him foolish, say he was chasing dreams that did not belong to someone like him. But Jarek did not care. As he made his way to the launch platform, he looked up at the sky. A sleek shuttle waited, engines humming quietly, ready to take him away. The enormity of what he was about to do hit him. He was leaving everything he knew behind, his farm, his quiet life, even the loneliness that had been a familiar companion. The shuttle's pilot greeted him with a nod. "You're Jarek, right? First time off planet?" "Yes," Jarek said, trying to sound confident. "And I suppose it shows." The pilot chuckled. "Don't worry, you'll get used to it. But the tournament, it's a whole different challenge. You'll see things you've never imagined." Jarek nodded, trying to imagine it. He had grown up reading about alien species, far-off planets, and daring adventurers, and nothing could have prepared him for the sight of the galaxy. Spread out beneath the shuttle's viewport, stars stretched into infinity. Strange nebulae glowed in colors he had no names for. Ships of every shape and size moved gracefully through space, some heading to unknown worlds, others carrying goods, and some simply racing for sport. Hours later, the shuttle docked at the massive space station that hosted the tournament. Jarek stepped out and felt a rush of awe. The station was enormous, glittering with neon lights, corridors bustling with species from every corner of the galaxy. Tall, slender aliens with silver skin walked alongside short, sturdy ones with 4 arms. Machines floated through the air, carrying goods or passengers. Jarek felt small, almost fragile, in this dazzling environment. "Welcome to the Galactic Poker Tournament," the pilot said, gesturing to the crowd. "Remember, it's not just about cards. Observation, patience, and intuition are just as important as luck. Yarrick took a deep breath and walked into the crowd. People whispered and stared at him. He felt their curiosity, some even amusement. A simple farmer from a quiet planet was here, among the galaxy's most skilled gamblers. Some doubted him. He doubted himself. But he reminded himself he had worked hard, he had patience, and he had a good heart. Those were his strengths, and perhaps that was enough. As he approached the registration area, he noticed her, a girl unlike any he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her eyes glowed faintly, like two stars in the dim light. She moved with grace and confidence, observing the room with calm intelligence. Garrick felt an unexpected pang of curiosity and respect. Who was she? And why did she look at the room and at him with such quiet authority? The hologram of the tournament coordinator welcomed him and handed him his first set of cards. Games were about to begin, and Yarrick felt a strange mix of fear, excitement, and anticipation. Whatever happened next, his life would never be the same. He looked at the alien girl once more. Perhaps he thought he would meet more than just challenges in this tournament. Perhaps he would meet someone who could change everything. With that thought, Yarrick took his seat at the first table. The cards were dealt. The tournament and his extraordinary journey had begun. Garrick sat at the table, feeling the hum of the space station beneath him. Around him, beings of every shape and color adjusted their cards, whispered to allies, or stared coldly at opponents. He clutched his cards tightly, his knuckles white, and reminded himself to stay calm. He had no flashy moves, no tricks, no experience in high-stakes galactic poker, but he had something else: patience and observation. Across the table, the alien girl he had noticed earlier smiled faintly. Her nameplate read Lyra, and she seemed perfectly at ease. Yarrick couldn't read her expression, but he felt a strange sense of respect from her gaze. She studied the cards calmly, as if she already knew what was about to happen. Yarrick wondered, was she here for fun, or was she here for something more serious? The dealer, a tall creature with multiple arms and golden scales, flicked the cards with precise movements. "Place your bets," it commanded in a voice that resonated through the hall. Yarrick hesitated. He had no idea how much to bet. A small amount felt safe, but what if it made him look weak? What if it made him a target for the more experienced players? He glanced at Lyra, who placed her bet with quiet confidence. He decided to follow his instinct and matched her. The first round began. Cards were dealt, and Yarrick focused entirely on observation. He watched the other players closely, the way they tapped their claws, the subtle shifts in their eyes, the nervous gestures of hands. Each tiny movement was a clue, a hint at what they might hold. He realized that this game was not just about luck. It was about understanding others, reading their intentions, and staying calm under pressure. Lyra caught his gaze briefly and gave a small nod, as if acknowledging his efforts. Yarrick's heart skipped a beat, but he forced himself to focus on. The game, round after round, passed. Rex's cautious strategy slowly began to show results. Not if he did not try to bluff recklessly, nor did he chase every big bet. He waited, observed, and only acted when he was certain. Slowly, the whispers around the table changed. The other players began to notice the quiet human who did not panic, who did not make foolish bets. "You're not what I expected," muttered a green-skinned alien with 3 eyes. "A farmer, yet you read the table like a pro." Yarrick shrugged, keeping his expression neutral. "I watch people. I watch the world. Sometimes it helps," he said simply. Lyra, meanwhile, continued to play with calm precision. She had a sharp mind, but she also noticed Yarrick's quiet strength. Unlike other players, he did not try to impress, cheat, or intimidate. He was honest, observant, and patient. She found it refreshing. As the rounds progressed, the crowd grew. Spectators from across the galaxy gathered to watch the human farmer, the simpleton, survive against seasoned professionals. Hushed conversations ran through the room. Can he really last? Some asked. A farmer? Others shook their heads. Impressed by his patience, then came the mid-tournament challenge, a round where players could swap cards. the mysterious deck that changed constantly. Many competitors panicked, throwing away valuable hands or taking too many risks. Jurek paused. He looked at the deck, then at the other players. He remembered the stories from his childhood. Careful thought beats reckless action. Slowly, he picked a few cards, trusting his instincts. Lyra watched silently, curious. She had never seen someone play with such calm logic. There was no bravado, no fear, just focus, and the hands were revealed. Yarek had improved his position without taking unnecessary risks. A few of the competitors muttered in frustration. By the evening of the first day, Yarek had advanced far enough to draw attention. His tournament officials whispered among themselves. Here was a human farmer who was not only surviving, but excelling. It was unusual, almost unheard of. Later, during a break, Yarek found a quiet corner to catch his breath. He looked at the holographic map of the space station, trying to make sense of the chaos around him. Lyra appeared beside him, moving with her usual quiet grace. "You play differently," she said softly. "You don't rely on luck or tricks. You rely on thought." Yarek looked at her, surprised. I guess I just try to see what others miss," he said. "I watch, I wait, I act when I know it's right. That's how I farm too." She smiled faintly. "Interesting. Oh, most people here forget patience. They rush, they bluff, they try to scare others. You don't." They shared a quiet moment, and for a brief time, the noise of the tournament faded. Yarek realized he was not just watching a game anymore. He was learning about a world he had never known, meeting someone unlike anyone he had ever met. Lyra's presence was calm yet commanding, and he found himself drawn to her. Even as he kept his focus on the tournament, the final rounds of the day began, and the stakes grew higher. Yarek could feel the tension in the air, the way competitors sized each other up, the subtle power struggles. Yet he remained steady, placed his bets carefully, read the other players, and slowly moved closer to the top. Lyra's eyes occasionally met his across the table. There was no need for words. They understood each other in a way that transcended language. Respect had begun to grow between them, a quiet bond amidst the chaos of the tournament. As the day ended, Drek found himself among the remaining players, a mix of seasoned gamblers and alien experts. The crowd erupted in whispers and cheers. He had survived against all odds, and he had done it his way with patience, observation, honesty. And somewhere deep inside, Yarek felt a spark of excitement. This was only the beginning. The tournament would grow harder, the stakes would rise, and the galaxy was full of dangers and wonders he had never imagined. But for the first time in his life, he felt that he belonged not just on this space station, but in a world bigger than his farm, bigger than he had ever imagined. And standing there, he knew one thing. He was ready. The tournament hall was alive with energy. Holographic lights danced across the walls, reflecting off polished metal floors and the faces of spectators from countless worlds. Garrick felt a thrill, unlike anything he had ever known on his quiet farm. The stakes were higher now, and the remaining players were some of the galaxy's most skilled gamblers. Yarek's heart pounded as he took his seat at the next table. Across from him sat competitors with long reputations, sly aliens with 6 arms, creatures known for bluffing experts, and seasoned gamblers whose very presence could intimidate opponents. Yarek glanced at Lyra, who sat several seats away. Her calm eyes met his, and she offered a small, almost imperceptible nod. "You've come far." "Human," muttered one of the alien players with green skin and sharp teeth. "Don't think luck will carry you now." Drek smiled faintly. "I don't rely on luck," he said quietly. "I rely on observation." The first hand was dealt. Cards glimmered in holographic form before each player. Drek examined his cards, then subtly watched the movements of the others. One alien tapped his claws nervously. Another shifted his weight in a way that suggested overconfidence. Slowly, carefully, Yarek began to place his bets. Lyra's turn came next. She moved gracefully, placing her chips with an elegance that made the others glance in surprise. But unlike most, she did not try to intimidate or bluff aggressively. She was precise, intelligent, and cautious, just like Yarek. In her own way, Round after round, Yarik's strategy paid off. Stayed patient, observed every gesture, every tiny signal, and acted only when he was certain. Competitors began to whisper. Simple human, a farmer, was still in the game, holding his own against legends of galactic poker. The crowd grew louder as the rounds progressed. Spectators leaned forward in anticipation, watching the quiet farmer who seemed almost out of place yet impossible to ignore. Holographic cameras captured every move, broadcasting the tension across the space station. Then came the mid-tournament twist, the mystery hand round. A new set of cards appeared, glowing faintly with alien energy. Players could swap some of their cards, but the deck was unpredictable. Many competitors rushed, grabbing cards without thinking, hoping for instant advantage. Panic and excitement filled the hall. Yarik studied the deck carefully. He watched the others for patterns, for hints about what they might take or leave. Slowly, methodically, he swapped 2 cards, trusting his instincts. When the hands were revealed, Yarik's position improved, but he had taken no unnecessary risks. Several players muttered in disbelief. Lyra observed quietly, her interest piqued. She had never seen a human play this way. Most humans she had encountered were either reckless or timid, but Yarik was different. He relied on something beyond skill or lucky, relied on patience, logic, and perception. The final round of the day approached. Only a handful of players remained. Yarik's pulse quickened. He had survived when so many had fallen, yet the most dangerous hand of all was coming. Across the table, his main opponent appeared, a notorious gambler known across the galaxy for winning nearly every major tournament. A tall alien with dark, reflective skin and eyes that seemed to pierce the soul. "This is where luck ends," the alien growled. "Only skill will survive." Yarik nodded. He did not feel fear. He had faced challenges before, not this large, not this strange, but still challenges. And he had learned something valuable. No matter how big the stakes, patience and observation were more powerful than intimidation. The final hand began. Cards shimmered, the audience held its breath, and holographic lights cast long shadows across the hall. Rek focused, watching each opponent's gestures, subtle tells, and the smallest signs of tension. Lyra's calm presence gave him an unexpected comfort, a quiet reminder that he was not entirely alone. As the betting continued, Yarik's careful strategy began to show its strength. Others made mistakes, revealed tiny signs of worry, or overplayed their confidence. Slowly, Yarik maneuvered his way into the lead, a mixture of careful calculation and human intuition guiding him. Finally, the moment came. The last card was revealed. The room went silent. Yarik's hand was solid, strong but more than that. It reflected his understanding of the game, patience, observation, and careful decisions. His opponent's face darkened. He had underestimated the quiet farmer. The dealer's multiple arms hovered over the holographic table. Winner, Yarik of Kalith, Prime. A wave of murmurs rippled through the hall. Spectators gasped. Competitors stared in disbelief. Yarik blinked, hardly able to believe it himself. He had done it. Against all odds, he had won. Then came the announcement that stunned him completely. The ultimate prize of the tournament, the holographic coordinator said, is the honored companion of the winner, Lyra. Yarik froze. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, but she did not speak. The hall buzzed with whispers. Many of the audience had expected material prizes, credits, ships, rare artifacts. Few expected that the final prize could be a person, chosen. By the tournament's ancient custom, Lyra rose gracefully. "I am not a prize," she said, her voice steady, though there was a hint of curiosity. "I am a companion, yes, bound by the rules of this tournament, but I am also free. Whoever wins must treat me with respect and honor, for I am no mere object." Yarik's mind raced. It expected excitement, challenge, maybe even danger. But not this. He looked at her, really looked, and felt a strange combination of awe, respect, and responsibility. "I promise," he said quietly. "I will treat you with respect. I will not see you as a prize, but as someone who deserves care, trust, and honesty. Lyra studied him carefully. Slowly, she nodded. She saw something in him that no one else seemed to notice. A kind heart, patience, and a courage that went beyond games. Then we shall see, she said, her faint smile softening her expression. The crowd's whispers became applause. But Yarrick only focused on Lyra. The tournament had tested him in ways he could never have imagined. But now, a new journey was beginning, one that would take him far beyond the games. Far beyond the space station and into adventures he had never dreamed of, Yarrick realized. Something important. Winning had not just been about skill. It had been about staying true to himself, trusting his instincts, and treating others with honesty and respect. And in that moment he felt more alive than he ever had on his quiet farm. Yarrick and Lyra left the grand hall of the space station, stepping into the cool night air of the observation deck. Stars stretched endlessly around them, glittering in a way Yarrick had never seen before. The hum of distant ships passed beneath. The station and the galaxy felt alive, vast, and full of possibilities. Lyra walked beside him with quiet grace, her eyes scanning the horizon. You played well, she said softly. Not many humans could have lasted this long. Yarrick shrugged. I guess I just tried to pay attention. The game is not just about the cards, it's about people, their choices, and their mistakes. He glanced at her, curious. And you played perfectly, she smiled faintly. I try, but you have something different. You don't rely on power or fear. You watch, you wait, and you act when it matters. That is rare in the galaxy. For the first time since he met her, Yarrick felt a spark of pride. He had not only survived the tournament, but he had impressed Lyra, being from across the stars, clever and observant in her own right. Yet he reminded himself that the real journey was just beginning. They traveled together to a quieter sector of the space station. Yarrick's cabin there was modest but comfortable, designed for guests who needed time to rest and adjust. Lyra observed it with curiosity, noticing the simplicity and functionality of every item. This is small, she said, tilting her head, but efficient. Yarrick laughed softly. I don't need much. I'm used to simple life on my farm. You'll see, there's comfort in it. Over the next few cycles, Yarrick and Lyra spent time getting to know each other. He told her about his farm, the crops, the animals, and the quiet life he led. She listened intently, fascinated by a way of life so unlike her own. She asked questions, not just out of curiosity, but because she wanted to understand him, his values, and his world. Lyra shared stories of her travels, the different planets she had visited, and the cunning gamblers she had faced before. Yarrick listened, amazed by the diversity and danger she had encountered. Yet he noticed that despite her experience, she was gentle and thoughtful in her words, never boasting or belittling others. Their conversations became routines. They cooked together in the small cabin, experimented with strange ingredients from the markets, and shared meals under the glow of artificial starlight. Lyra laughed at Yarrick's attempts to explain farming techniques, and he smiled at her stories of exotic places and creatures. One evening, Lyra spoke softly. You see me? As an equal, most humans I've met would have treated me differently, like a prize or something to be owned. But you respect me. You don't try to control or impress. You just treat me like someone who matters. Yarrick looked down, feeling a warmth he had never known. God, I would never treat anyone that way, he said simply. People deserve respect, whether they are human, alien, or anything else. And you've earned mine. Lyra's eyes softened. She had never met someone like him before. In the galaxy, she had seen beings who valued power, money, or appearances above all else. But Yarrick, he valued honesty, patience, and kindness. She realized she was beginning to trust him, perhaps more than she had trusted anyone before. Next day, they decided to leave the station and explore nearby planets. Yarrick had never traveled this far from his farm, and every new world amazed him. One planet was a lush jungle, teeming with glowing plants and creatures with multiple wings. Another was a desert world, its sands shifting in colors he could not name. Lyra guided him, teaching him how to navigate strange terrain and communicate with local species. Through it all, Jarek learned from Lyra, but he also noticed that she was learning from him. He showed her the value of patience, how observing and understanding others could reveal hidden truths. She began to see that his calm nature and careful thought were strengths in their own right. It's not just simple traits of a farmer. They faced small challenges together, helping villagers repair machines, defending themselves from sudden sandstorms, and navigating tricky trade markets. Each challenge strengthened their bond. Jarek saw Lyra's intelligence and courage in action, and she saw his steadiness and unwavering honesty. One evening, they sat on a hill overlooking a glowing city. Lyra turned to Jarek. "You are different from anyone I've ever met. Are not trying to be better than anyone. You are just yourself, and that is powerful." Jarek smiled, feeling a deep connection he could not fully explain. "I suppose I've had a lot of practice being myself," he said. "On my farm, there's no hiding, no pretending. You deal with what comes, and you do your best. That's life, I guess." Lyra nodded, and for a moment, they sat in silence, watching the twin moons rise. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of danger, beauty, and opportunity. But in that quiet moment, it felt small and safe just enough for the two of them. Jarek realized something important. Winning Lyra in the tournament had not been about a prize. It had been about trust, respect, and genuine care. And if he could continue to treat her with kindness, patience, and honesty, perhaps they could face whatever the galaxy had to offer. Together, the stars above seemed to twinkle in agreement.
Oh.
A farmer and an alien girl, strangers from different worlds, had found a bond that neither time nor distance could easily break. And for Jarek, that bond felt more valuable than any prize, any tournament, or any wealth the galaxy could offer. With a quiet smile, he turned to Lyra. "Tomorrow, we explore another world," he said. "But tonight, we enjoy this. Just us and the stars." Lyra returned his smile, a gentle warmth in her eyes. "Just us and the stars," she agreed. And for the first time, Jarek felt that his life, once so quiet and lonely, had become something extraordinary, full of hope, wonder, and connection beyond anything he had ever imagined. Jarek and Lyra were traveling through a bustling trade sector, the corridors of the space station alive with merchants, traders, and travelers from countless worlds. The duo had grown accustomed to each other's presence, Lyra's calm intelligence balanced Jarek's steady patience, and even in this moment of companionship, the galaxy reminded them that danger often lurked where least expected. Rumors had spread quickly after the tournament. Jarek, the human farmer who had won against the galaxy's best gamblers, was now a figure of curiosity and envy. Some competitors whispered of his unusual luck, while others saw him as a potential threat. And in the darker corners of the sector, whispers carried darker intentions. Bounty hunters and mercenaries had learned of Lyra's status as the tournament's honored companion. Some saw her as a prize to be taken, and others sought to exploit her unique abilities. The first sign of trouble came when Jarek noticed a shadow moving unusually fast among the crowd. He instinctively stepped closer to Lyra and whispered, "Stay close to me." She nodded, her expression calm but alert. A group of 3 alien figures emerged from the crowd, their eyes fixed on Lyra. They were armed, though subtly, and their intentions were clear. "Step aside, human," one growled. "The girl belongs to us now." Jarek did not flinch. He had faced uncertainty all his life on the farm, but this was something different. His heart raced, yet his mind was calm. He knew brute force alone would not help. They had to rely on strategy, observation, and quick thinking. Lyra's hand moved slightly, activating a small device she wore on her wrist. It emitted a low pulse, signaling the nearby crowd sensors to alert station security. "We can't wait for them to act first," she said calmly. "We need to move." Together they stepped into a narrow side corridor, blending with the flow of people, The aliens followed, underestimating the pair's ability to navigate the space. Yarek noticed small details: a loose maintenance door ahead, the ventilation shafts above, and the subtle changes in the crowd's movement. Using these observations, he guided Lyra through the less obvious paths. The group reached the maintenance door, and Lyra quickly opened it. "This way," she whispered. They slipped into the shadows, moving silently through the maze of service corridors. Behind them, the alien pursuers realized they had been tricked. But by then it was too late. The human farmer and his companion had vanished from sight. Yarek's pulse slowed as they paused in a small storage room. "You were amazing back there," he said, genuinely impressed. "I didn't think I'd ever move that fast in a place like this." Lyra smiled faintly. "You stayed calm? Most humans panic when threatened. You didn't. That's why we survived." Trust and patience can be just as powerful as speed or weapons. They rested only briefly, knowing that the danger was not fully gone. The bounty hunters would not give up easily, and the galaxy was vast but full of surprises. Yarek realized that winning Lyra had not only given him companionship, but also responsibility. He could not let anything happen to her. Over the next few days, the duo traveled between nearby planets, keeping low profiles while learning to work as a team. They shared responsibilities. Jarek's keen observation and knowledge of logic guided them through unfamiliar terrain, while Lyra's intelligence, gadgets, and experience protected them from threats they could not anticipate. One evening, on a forested moon, they camped near a glowing river. Lyra watched Jarek as he prepared a simple meal from local ingredients, fascinated by the quiet skill with which he worked. "You have a way of making everything look easy," she said. Shook his head. "It's not easy. You just pay attention. The world gives clues if you notice them. Farming taught me that. And maybe surviving the tournament taught me a little too." Lyra laughed softly, the sound carrying gently over the water. "I suppose even the galaxy has lessons for everyone then." Suddenly, the river's surface shimmered unnaturally. Yarek froze. "Movement," he whispered. He noticed subtle ripples and the faint glow of figures approaching. Lyra activated a small protective field around their campsite, and together they faced the approaching threat. It was a group of mercenaries, clever and cautious. But Yarek and Lyra had learned to anticipate danger together. Using shadows, terrain, and quick communication, they managed to outmaneuver the attackers. The fight was brief but tense. No weapons were fired. Instead, their combined wit and teamwork allowed them to escape the ambush. By the time the mercenaries realized they had been outsmarted, Yarek and Lyra had vanished into the forest. Hidden among the glowing flora, breathing heavily, Yarek looked at Lyra. "That was close," he said, though there was a spark of pride in his eyes. "But we did it, together." Lyra nodded, her eyes bright. "Yes, and you're learning fast. You think like a gambler, yes, but also like someone who cares. You watch for danger not just for yourself, but for me. That is rare." Yarek felt a warmth in his chest. It wasn't just survival that mattered. It was connection, trust, and respect. In the galaxy where power often ruled and people looked out only for themselves, he realized he had found someone who valued those same things. 4. The first time Jarek understood that adventure was not just about excitement or winning, it was about standing together, facing challenges with intelligence and care, and building bonds that could survive the galaxy's dangers. As they settled near their campsite, Lyra reached out and touched his arm lightly. "You treat me differently from everyone else," she said quietly, "and because of that, I trust you." Yarek smiled, feeling the truth of her words. He had won more than a tournament. He had earned a companion, an equal, and a friend who valued him not for his luck or skill, but for his heart. Above them, the stars stretched endlessly, and Yarek felt a deep sense of purpose. The galaxy was wide, dangerous, and full of mysteries, but, for the first time, he felt ready to face it. Together, he and Lyra could handle whatever came their way. And in that moment, amidst the soft glow of alien flora and the quiet hum of distant worlds, Yarok realized something more. Adventure was better when shared, and courage was strongest when rooted in respect, trust, and care for someone else. Yarok and Lyra's ship glided quietly through the blackness of space, leaving the bustling trade sectors and dangerous bounty hunters far behind. For the first time since the tournament, Yarok felt a true sense of peace. He looked at Lyra, seated beside him, her eyes reflecting the stars outside. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked quietly, referring to the adventures, the tournaments, and the thrill of danger. Yarok shook his head gently. "Not really. I enjoyed it, yes. But there's something better waiting at home, something quiet, something real." Lyra studied him carefully, her expression softening. "I think I understand. You value life in a way most beings forget in the rush for power or wealth. You notice the little things, care for others. That is rare." They arrived at Calith Prime, Yarok's small, unassuming farm. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting silver light over the fields. The farm had changed little since he left, still modest, still simple, still his home. Yet it felt different now. With Lyra beside him, it seemed alive with possibility. Yarok stepped out first, followed by Lyra. She inhaled the earthy scent of the soil and glanced around with quiet curiosity. "It's peaceful," she said. "Nothing like the stations or planets I've seen, yet it feels full of life." Yarok smiled. "That's the beauty of it. Life doesn't need to be flashy to be meaningful." Lyra walked among the crops, touching the leaves gently. She noticed the animals grazing calmly, the small irrigation systems Yarok had built, and the modest tools he used every day. "You care for this land, and it thrives because of you," she said softly. Yarok nodded. "I care for what's around me, same way I care for the people I value. And now you are part of that too." Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting warmth and trust. "I never thought I would feel at home on a farm," she admitted. "Yet with you, it feels right." Over the next weeks, Lyra adapted to farm life with surprising ease. She learned to tend the crops, care for the animals, and even try her hand at simple repairs. Yarok guided her patiently, showing her the rhythms of the land and the value of steady, honest work. The villagers, initially curious and skeptical, watched the alien girl integrate into Yarok's life. They were amazed at how gentle and respectful. Yarok was with Lyra, treating her not as a prize, but as a partner. Slowly, their admiration grew, and whispers of the human farmer's courage and kindness spread throughout the community. One evening, as the sun set behind the twin moons, Lyra and Yarok sat on a small hill overlooking the fields. Wind rustled softly through the crops, and the sky glowed in shades of orange and purple. "You've changed me," Lyra said quietly. "I've traveled the galaxy, met powerful beings, and seen wonders, yet none of it compares to this learning, to care, to trust, and to feel valued." Yarok smiled. "And you've changed me too. You've taught me that even in a quiet life, the galaxy can feel vast. You showed me courage, intelligence, and patience in ways I never imagined." Lyra reached out, taking his hand. "We make a good team," she said softly. "It's not because of skill or strength or luck, but because we respect each other. And that is stronger than anything else." Yarok squeezed her hand gently. "Yes, that's the human way, I suppose. We face challenges together, care for those we value, and never give up on what matters." As the moons rose higher, casting silver light over the farm, they sat in companionable silence. The galaxy beyond was still full of adventure, danger, and wonder, but here on this small planet, they had found something rare, a home, trust, and a bond that could withstand anything. Time passed, and the farm flourished. Lyra's presence brought new energy and ideas. Together, they expanded the fields, experimented with hybrid crops from other planets, and built small structures that made life easier for themselves and the village animals. The villagers often came to visit, curious about Lyra's stories of distant worlds and fascinated by the gentle respect between her and Yarok. Lyra and Yarok shared starlit nights, simple meals, and long conversations. They explored nearby forests, studied alien flora and fauna, and occasionally Lyra would teach Yarick about the galaxy's wonders. Yet through all the learning and exploring, the farm remained their anchor, a place of quiet, honest life and mutual respect. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the horizon, Lyra looked at Yarick with a serene smile. "I never thought a farmer could change my life," she said softly. Yarick laughed gently. "And I never thought the galaxy could teach me how to truly care for someone," he replied. They stood together, watching the light spread across the fields, feeling a bond that was deeper than adventure, stronger than any tournament victory. It's more meaningful than anything wealth or power could offer. In that quiet, golden moment, Yarick realized that winning the tournament was only the beginning. The real prize had been Lyra's trust, respect, and companionship. He had vowed to honor it every day. Together, they had found not only adventure and excitement, but a life of meaning, love, and hope that neither had ever expected. And, in the endless expanse of the galaxy, amidst countless stars and possibilities, they had discovered something rare and precious, the human way of living, caring, and loving, and that was more extraordinary than any journey through space could ever be.